Hello guys, it is Monday the 15th of June 2020 and my last video is 3 weeks ago. Yeah, I've just been struggling with my mental health and I wasn't home half of the time, and I actually tried filming a video. I wanted to make it like an 18 years, 18 books video because I'm gonna turn 18 next month. But like, I tried filming it as I said and it just got way too long and I wasn't happy with it at all. And then I stressed about making it again like so much that I just wasn't able to do it. And so I just ditched this project, and yeah, this morning I woke up, had my coffee, and then I felt energized enough to finally film a video again. And I didn't want to make the 18 books video because like just thinking about it gives me a headache. So I decided, because we're all probably still in quarantine, to make a video about mental health. More specifically mental health books that have helped me in the past. I have 6 different books for you. One in, different genres. And yeah, I hope y'all can find something you find interesting, and yeah, maybe you can relate to it in quarantine, because I know that not everyone wants to read happy books to escape, because some of us want to read like a book with a main character that resembles us and that has a similar experience to us. And I know that for me and a lot of other people that struggle with mental health, yeah, it's important to see your experiences reflected, and reading doesn't bring us in danger of catching the coronavirus. So why don't we all pick up a good book and stay the fuck indoors? Okay, so I'm gonna start now. And the first book I want to talk about is The Bell Jar by Sylvia Plath. I finished this yesterday evening, and although it has only 234 pages in this edition, which I don't really like you thought that green and red was a good combination. I don't know. But like, I finished this yesterday. It took me a really long time, although it is only so short. But yeah, I wasn't really in the mood for reading, and I have this weird thing where I only start to pick up my reading pace in the middle of a book. So the first half is always like, yeah, I'm gonna read like 10 pages today, then I'm gonna watch Netflix. Then I basically sprint through the rest, and was the same with this one. This is the story of Esther Greenwood, who wins an internship in New York for a famous fashion magazine, but finds herself not really enjoying the experience. Like, she feels like she should be having the time of her life, but she struggles from depression, and it gets worse and worse, and she has big aspirations at first to become a writer and a poet, but society keeps telling her that she's not good enough and this is a job for men and she should learn something practical that can help her sustain a living. And then when she gets back from the internship, she gets submitted to shock therapy from her mum, and it just worsens her mental health. So then her mum puts her into an asylum that can actually help her. This book is really well written. It covers a lot of topics, from feminism when it wasn't even called feminism and when the movement hadn't even begun. It covers 1950s society, women's aspirations, how they were like not taken seriously, but it also talks about women's mental health and how this sexist culture that one woman spiral into depression and eventually suicide attempt. And I really enjoyed this. It is very poetically written. I'm just gonna read you a quote that isn't too spoilery. I knew I should be grateful to Miss Guinea, only I couldn't feel a thing. If Mrs. Guinea had given me a ticket to Europe or around the world cruise, it wouldn't have made one scrap of difference to me, because wherever I sat, on the deck of a ship or at a street cafe in Paris or Bangkok, I would be sitting under the same glass bell jar, stewing in my own sour air. The next book I want to talk about is YA, and I'm sure if you've been on BookTube for a while, you should know it. It is The Upset of Unrequited by Becky Albertelli. I'm planning to do a reread of all of the Simonverse books by her, because there's gonna be a Simonverse novella coming out at the end of the month, and I already pre-ordered it. If you don't know what it's about a 17-year-old girl called Molly, and she has anxiety, so she struggles a lot with boyfriends and crushes. Well, not boyfriends, because it says that she had 26 crushes, but she's never really talked to them. And it's also about her relationship to her sister Cassie, who is either bisexual or lesbian, I don't really remember, but she has a girlfriend, and everyone just seems to be able to manage their lives. And then she meets this boy who's supposed to be her perfect crush, but she starts working in, I believe, a second-hand store, or like an antique store, and she has a co-worker there who's a total nerd, and then they start developing really cute romance, and it's very awkward, but it's also very sweet, and it's a really lovely family portrait, and it's just so lovely seeing Molly deal with her anxiety, like, and treating it so openly, but also trying to fight it. And what I like about this is that it's not your typical teen romance. It deals with heavier topics while also remaining very cute, and it's just a sweet story. My next book I put in the category autofiction. If you don't know what autofiction is, it is a term used to describe fiction that is half autobiographical, half fictional. And the book I want to talk about is It's Kind of a Funny Story by Nat Vizzini. You might know the movie, but the book is actually very different from the movie. In my opinion, it doesn't have more in common than the characters. I enjoyed the book more than the movie. It's about a teen, also in New York City, and he stresses a lot about school and getting the best grades, and then getting into the right college, but he finds himself losing motivation, and he gets so stressed about getting into this school and succeeding in life that he stops eating, he stops sleeping, he has these thought spirals, he gets really depressed, and at one point he's very close to jumping off of the Brooklyn Bridge, and then he decides by himself that this has gone on for far too long and checks himself into a mental hospital. And it doesn't sound as funny as it actually is in this book, because the people he meets in this hospital are so unique and they all have their own flaws, but they sort of embrace that craziness and they help each other with jokes and not taking everything so seriously. It's a very funny look at a very serious issue, and it also doesn't treat mental illness like something funny. Like, that's not it. It takes it seriously, but it shows ways to get out of it and ways to support each other, and it is really hopeful book. My next recommendation is from the genre sci-fi, and I decided to pick On the Edge of Gone by Corinne Divers something. I'm sorry that I can't pronounce this. This is a book I've read years ago, and it was the only one I could think of with sci-fi books about mental health. But since I don't remember a lot, I'm just gonna read the blurb to you. January 29th, 2035. This is actually very similar to my introduction to my videos. That's the day the comet is scheduled to hit, the big one. Denise and her mother and sister Iris have been assigned to a temporary shelter near their hometown of Amsterdam to wait at the blast, but Iris is nowhere to be found, and at the rate Denise's addicted mother is going, they'll never reach the shelter in time. Then a last-minute encounter leads them to something better than a temporary shelter, a generation ship that's scheduled to leave Earth behind and colonize new worlds after the comet hits. But each passenger must have a practical skill to contribute. Denise is autistic and fears that she'll never be allowed to stay. Can she obtain a spot before the ship takes flight? What about her mother and sister? When the future of the human race is at stake, whose lives matter most? And that is a very important question. Like, it was a very unique experience because there are a lot of apocalyptical books that deal with the end of the world and some sort of thing hitting the earth, and then like either everyone is wiped out or some can survive. For me, as someone who experiences anxiety, I found it very unique to see an event like that from the eyes of someone who's autistic, because she sees everything so much more, you know, like she experiences these things in a very vivid way. In this ship, everyone lives very close to each other and she often gets overwhelmed. If you don't want to read a book set in modern time, like a contemporary, but you still want to read about mental health, this is the book for you. Second to last, I have a book I've read twice, I believe, and I would absolutely read it again. The book is a graphic novel and it's called Quiet Girl in a Noisy World, an introvert story by Debbie Tong. Debbie Tong is an online cartoonist and she has an Instagram I follow very actively. She's also published another book, which you can see in the background. It's called Book Love. And she also had a new book coming out, which I still need to get. This is about Debbie, who struggles as an introvert in a world that is mainly focused on extroverts. And you might be thinking, what has that got to do with mental health? But through this book, I, as a person who struggles with social anxiety, I felt very, very seen, because the main character of this book was based on experiences the author has had. She, let's just say, she prefers a good book and a cup of tea over social interaction, and it shows everyday moments like talking to people at parties and having like gatherings at work and stuff like that, and how she as an introvert reacts to them, and it's very funny, and it's mostly stuff that I've experienced myself. And it's a book that tells you to embrace who you are, like that your quietness isn't something you should change, but that it's something that you should value and that you should use, and that it's not about fitting in the society, but that it's about finding your own way and finding your passion in which you can use your unique characteristics. And lastly, I have a poetry collection. It is called Graffiti and Other Poems by Savannah Brown, illustrated by Ed Stockham. I haven't read this in a long time, but I find this very relatable because she wrote this in her teens, and I'm in my teens as well. And she has struggled with an eating disorder, with I believe depressive episodes and anxiety. And I haven't read a lot of poetry collections, but this was one that I found very relatable. And since I find it very hard to describe what poetry collections are about, I'm just gonna read you one of my favorite poems from the collection. It is called "I Think This Was the First Time I Felt Like I Was Really Living." I told you that you can feel things better with your eyes closed. Right after I realized that the back of your throat didn't taste like booze, and I felt validated in some strange way that I'm guessing confused teenagers do. This is a lesson I told myself after, a lesson in forgetting, a lesson in disconnect, a lesson in that words are poison laced with sugar, a lesson in you will not have dreams about that smoke tonight, a lesson in sometimes you can feel it linger after it's gone, a lesson in I like myself better drunk, a lesson in is this what good times are, a lesson in well they were bound to start eventually. Maybe I should just sleep on it. So yeah, I think this is a good note to end this video. I hope you found something you found interesting, and that you pick up one of these books and it helps you through quarantine. I'll see you soon, hopefully. I've got a lot of ideas for videos. And I hope you have a great rest of the day, that you're staying safe, and that you and your family and friends are healthy. Goodbye.